This is the unit on foundations of government. The objective, what is the purpose of government? Now, this is a really important question because you need to ask yourself, what is the purpose of government? How much do I want government to do? And one of the things we talked about is why we're taking this class. And we talked about how government is an all-pervading social force, and it's in everything that we do. Well, how much do you want government to do? What should be the purpose of government? Should the purpose of government be to make sure there's no risk, to prevent you from making a mistake? Or should you have the freedom to do anything you want, including the freedom to be stupid? Okay, so that's a great debate that we're going to be having eventually. But what do you think is the purpose of government? What do you want government to do? Now, I want you to think about government from the very beginning of time to now in 2020. Those of you who've had Western Civ 1, hopefully you remember where the first civilization and government was. And so I want you to think caveman world, and you've been nomadic, and you look down that Tigris-Euphrates River Valley and you see it and you say, because that was the name of the first government city civilization in that Tigris-Euphrates River Valley, that Sumerian River Valley. So from to today in 2020, in the government that you're familiar with, what is the purpose of government? What do you want government to do? Well, one of the things I hope you would want government to do is to protect us from outsiders. So this would be our defense. How do we defend ourselves? What are we going to set up to make sure that other people don't hurt us, or other critters and animals don't hurt us and attack us? So how are we going to protect ourselves from outsiders? For us today, that is our military. And so if you think about the branches of the military, the Air Force, the Army, the Marines, the Navy, the Coast Guard, and do you know the sixth branch? Space Force, that was developed under President Trump last year. So Space Force is our new sixth branch to help protect us from outsiders. And from the very first civilization, in Sumeria, to today in 2020, all across the world, governments have protection from outsiders. What do they create to do that? We also have to protect ourselves from each other because, unfortunately, sometimes people like to take away our life and our property and our own personal pursuit of happiness. So sex trafficking, taking away their own personal pursuit of happiness, that's protection from each other. Stealing, that's protection from each other. And of course, life, protecting our life. So how do we have protection from each other? We have the police, we have the deputies, we have Iowa Highway Patrol. There's a whole list of what we use for protection from each other. The other thing that government has to do is solve problems and conflicts. So when the Booyah River Valley keeps flooding over its riverbanks, that's a problem for Denison. So how do we solve that problem? If we have increased episodes of vandalism in our community, that's a problem. How do we come together and solve that? Do we have more youth programs? Do we have more parenting classes? What do we do to solve those different problems and conflicts? Now, protection from outsiders, that was something that had to worry about, same as us. Protection from each other, that was something had to worry about, the same as us. Solve problems and conflicts, that was something had to worry about, the same as us. What if you had a family that kept putting their sewage in the river, in the Tigris River, and you lived downflow of the Tigris River? That's a problem. That's a conflict that government needs to step in and solve. So those are what we call traditional purposes of government. And from the very first government to 2020, those are things that we expected government to do. In the mid-1900s, around the Great Depression time, these were some modern purposes of government we expect government to do. So one of them was to provide public services. Now, some of that started with the increase in public schools, roads, county hospitals, like we have Crawford County Memorial Hospital, but government providing services for people. So for us, we have our Aquatic Fun Center. You can think of all the different services our government provides: our parks, our street lighting, our sewage system. Those are all wonderful public services. The other thing, during that Depression time, which became a modern purpose of government, was to create a strong economy. And so if you look at the different things the United States has for that, we have a Federal Reserve System, we have regulation of banking and the Securities and Exchange, unemployment, Social Security. Those are all things that our government does, as well as other mechanisms to help provide a strong economy. And those are some modern purposes of government. Now, some people complain and say government's gone too far. They've gone past what their primary mission is of those first three: protection from each other, protection from outsiders, and solving problems and conflicts. If you look at our Constitution, one of the purposes of government was to form this union. The Articles of Confederation did not work. And the thought was a federal system, there is more strength in a union. And you can see that with our national security, even fighting COVID. To guarantee civil rights and liberties. Some people believe that a modern purpose of government was to make sure all people are treated fairly. Now, it's not just modern. If you look at early governments, there is an aspect of guaranteeing civil rights and liberties as well. The thing is, our country was the first to codify it and put it into law in our Constitution. Okay, so that is what we believe as a purpose of government, and the primary purpose of government in our preamble. We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union. And what I love about more perfect, it doesn't mean perfect plus or perfect. More perfect means close to perfect. Your founding fathers were brilliant. They did not say, in order to form a perfect union, they said more perfect, meaning it's close to perfect, but there's going to be some problems. We're humans. We're sinful. There's going to be some problems. And since we know there's going to be some problems, this Constitution is close as we can get to perfect. We're trying. Wonderful stuff. Now, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, right? That's to protect those civil rights and liberties, right? Provide for the common defense. Promote the general welfare. That doesn't mean give you food stamps and welfare. General welfare means promote your pursuit of happiness, your general well-being, meaning you are safe, you are protected, your civil rights and liberties are protected, so you can pursue your happiness. Doesn't mean you get a guaranteed payment. Okay. Establish justice. Law has to be fair, reasonable, impartial, applied to the same way for every single person. Apply the same way to every single person. Ensure domestic tranquility. That means peace. Peace in our United States. I'm recording this and Minneapolis is on fire and several other places around the United States. Breaks my heart. But our Constitution says government will ensure domestic tranquility. That means we're going to have laws and you have to follow the laws, and laws are essential in order to have an ordered society. And then provide for that common defense against outside attacks. That's our 6 branches of military service, Space Force, to help provide and protect us so we can have our rights. Now, within those purposes of government, there's powers of government that we've enabled government to do and how we set that up. This is Montesquieu's 3 branches of government. This is the United States' first time doing this as well. 3 separate but equal, meaning if I ask you which is the most powerful branch, there isn't. They're equal. So you know, and you've had this in review, legislative is your lawmaking, executive is your enforcing, and judicial is your law interpreting. Now, it doesn't mean, the legislative branch didn't know what they meant when they wrote that. What that means is looking at the law to see if it is constitutional or not. It actually fits in the Constitution and is legal. Okay, not interpreting and trying to figure out what it means. That doesn't even make sense, though a lot of you will tell me that. So those are those wonderful powers of government, and you will want to have those in your notes. So make sure you get those down and review them because they will be on the test.